right, so next topic. We have called news coping because we are not original and we suck.
It's the old, we're not original, we plagiarized ourselves. It's news coping and muse coping.
It's the best pair you could come up with.
Except for us.
So, hey. So, in this segment of the show, we alternatively, like muse coping, bring a thing to the table to discuss, and then in this case it's an article that has tickled our fancy or has pissed us off or has done something to us that we want to talk about it. So this week comes from this week's article comes from The Week magazine, which
because Duncan reads that now.
Yeah, so this is going to be a dramatic reading. No, so this article is about tuition fees. Obviously, tuition fees were a big deal, like not too long ago in the whole election thing, because Jeremy Corbyn was like, "Lol, gonna take away election fees," and everyone was like, "Fuck, let's vote."
Did you say election fees?
Oh, I meant tuition fees. The echo's getting to me finally. I've been doing well. So yeah, I've got a couple quotes from this article I want to read to you, and then I will ask for your opinions on stuff. So, first bit of it that I want to read is the opening. So, it's called Tuition Fees, Not Such a Sensible Idea. And because it's in The Week, it doesn't have like an author, it's just more of a summary of how this has been reported. So basically, is it time to rethink the issue of tuition fees? Since the introduction in 1998, the principle of co-payment for university education has, by and large, been a success, said the Financial Times. It has given universities more financial stability and autonomy while relieving the burden on taxpayers, and it hasn't put off poor students. Next quote. The same thing happened in 2012 when the Tory Lib Dem coalition introduced a new cap of £9,000 that at once became the fee for virtually every course. Triumphant VCs, meanwhile, awarded themselves vast pay rises. Bath University's boss pocketed £450,000 last year, and the average pay is more than £275,000. And lastly, will the Tories, who have almost no support among students and academics, go to the stake to defend £9,000 tuition fees for universities? I doubt it. So, what are your thoughts?
Right, so forgive me if I'm wrong, firstly, but in Scotland, if you're a Scottish resident, you don't pay tuition fees.
Correct.
To actually go to university, yeah.
Yeah.
So, kind of shot ourselves in the foot here because I moved to England.
Yeah, a little bit.
And that means that I now pay tuition fees.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a real give and take because to an extent, like, universities can't function without funding, and that funding has to come from somewhere. So obviously the government can't pay 100% of what is necessary to keep all the many universities running, because I don't know how many universities there are in the UK, but it is fucking tons.
Yeah, because especially seeing as in like the past 10 years, obviously uni has become a more general thing. You know, when our parents were kids, or were our age, going to uni was like a very privileged kind of thing. Only the top band of people went to uni, but now literally everyone goes to uni, and if they don't, they go to college, and a lot of colleges have now become unis in some way or another. So yeah, there's too many unis.
Essentially every major city in the UK has a university.
Yeah.
Some of them have two, like Canterbury,
That's
where
true.
I am, which have University of Kent and then Canterbury Christchurch. And, you know, that is like an insane undertaking for a government, and people who are against taxation and just in general people who don't want taxes to increase. Obviously tuition fees are a good thing because it means that they won't be getting taxed out the ass just to support people who, you know, aren't related to them in any way.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be paying this much money to send someone you don't know off to university.
Yeah.
And in that way, like, tuition fees are necessary,
Yeah, they're
but
fair in that way.
at the same time, I have $9,000 a year in just tuition fees, not to mention maintenance loans. And that has interest on it, and that will literally keep me in debt, technically speaking, for like years to come. Even once I've like got my degree, granted I don't have to pay it until a certain point, but I will be then paying off my student loans for like most of my life. And then that comes as like part of the undertaking of like, well, then I want to get a house and start a family, and I need to run a car and all that. Like, bills stack up, and eventually tuition fees will start to bite me in the ass, purely from a point of like, unless I get a very well paid job, I won't necessarily feel that confident in paying off everything that I will have like under my belt. And I do think $9,000 a year is excessive, because
totally.
You look at even just like one university, like how many thousands of students come through every year, paying $9,000 a year. Like, it's fairly insane.
Yeah, totally.
And you know, the universities try and give back in their own way. There's scholarships, and there's, you know, you're paying this much money a year, so there's bursaries, and I know for a fact that I can get free tickets to like most of the drama performances in Canterbury because of the fact I'm a drama student. And you know, I got a free book signing because I'm also a creative writing student. There was a book signing that I got free access to. But you know, even with all those benefits, it's definitely excessive. But
well, you were talking about debt. So another bit of this article is lots of graduates go into modestly paid jobs where, thanks to their student debt, they effectively face a flat 9% tax hike on any income over £21,000. So that's obviously not great for if you do want to go to uni. And so before the Tory Lib Dem coalition, Tony Blair in 2004 initiated this whole thing where it was like top-up fees or something. So I think instead of 9,000, I believe it was 3,000 was the standard. So I think it is totally excessive. And I think, judging by the popularity of the youth vote in the most recent general election, I think it's safe to say students want rid of them in some way or another. Obviously, as you say, the money has to come from somewhere. Taxpayers would have to then pay. But, I mean, in Scotland, you know, we don't hear too much protesting by taxpayers about it, because, to be fair, it is now a thing where the majority of people are going into further education. So, you know, one way or another, people are paying, but it's more just. I would understand, to be honest, if it was still the kind of thing where less people went to uni, then tuition fees would be more of a thing, because then it's, you know, you are paying for yourself or your child. But now, seeing it as it is a huge thing that the majority of people are going to, it kind of makes sense to me that everyone chips in, because basically the majority of people are doing it. Yeah,
it's true. Like, your family, it is likely will benefit. Like, unless you are... Because it's really, like, it's more of a majority now than it is a minority. It's very much pushed, even in, like, schools. They're pushing you towards, you want to go to university. So it is likely to benefit your family in some way. If you're paying taxes towards education, specifically higher education, it's likely that someone in your family will benefit from it. But also, like, you have to take into account, like, I won't name the person, but I know of somebody who is 26 years old, and they only in the past year managed to move into their own place with their partner. And it's like that in part is due to the fact that people pay so much money for everything these days. And can we really afford, because that person didn't go to university, they did an open university course, but they're paying for everything. They're paying for living costs, and they're paying for a car, and they're paying for education. People can't afford to then go on and actually live their lives, and it's then putting a strain on the previous generation, because parents are having to support their children for much longer than they would normally. And it happens like across the board. And, you know, 20 years ago, people were moving out when they were 18, and they were going on and getting, you know, flats or apartments, and then they were moving on to buying houses while still paying rent on their apartments. They were still able to save enough money to move into a house. So definitely, like, student loans and like paying off your student debt really hurts, just like the economy at
totally.
large, I feel.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, going on that point, I know someone, again, not going to name names, but I know someone in their 30s who is still paying off student loans and that kind of thing. And that's up here where they don't have the actual tuition fees to pay off. And they're still paying it off. On the flip side of that, I know someone in their 20s who didn't go to uni, has a very stable job, and is a homeowner and has a kid. Like, it just shows, obviously going to further education is extremely valuable, and the majority of people are doing it, blah, blah, blah. But in an economy which is kind of struggling along, because I'm not going to get into political views, but austerity is kind of killing people, it's kind of harsh to have students and young people try to start their economic life independently in that kind of climate with that much debt already on their name. So I think it's fair to kind of reopen the debate a bit.
Yeah, because it used to be the standard where the line was, if you go to university, you'll get a better job, you'll earn more money.
Yeah.
But now, not necessarily the case, because obviously there's like apprenticeships and everything anyway. And it was very nearly my decision. I almost didn't go to university.
That was the same.
Yeah, I almost reapplied for just a job. I was just going to apply for a job and work my way up until I was earning enough money to just get my own place. And I was like not convinced by the idea of university at all. Now that I'm there, I will say that I love it, but I still have that like looming like, will I get a job when I'm done with university?
I like the tone of voice that's in your head.
Exactly, because that's exactly what it is. It's like, I'm having a great time, and it's like in the middle of a dance floor, you're very drunk, and you're suddenly like, what is going to happen to my life? like you suddenly realize how much debt you're in, and you're already spending more money on alcohol, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a debate that needs to be opened again, because student debt is going to be the death of me and many others.
Like, closing this topic, I hope it does get debated again properly, because, you know, it would be pretty shitty of Jeremy Corbyn. He said in their next general election he is going to support that point again. Yeah. But it'd be pretty shitty of him to just drop it, just being like, oh, well, I didn't get elected, so I can't really do that. It's like, if you're going to campaign for that, you do it. Especially seeing as honestly, the youth vote was so much, you know?
Yeah, like it was such a difference, like compared to
turnout was crazy.
Compared to the last election. Like you could see, like on Facebook, months before the election, students and like all of my student friends were on Facebook, basically petitioning their other friends, go and vote for Jeremy Corbyn, because you didn't have to like the man, you just had to like the policies.
Yeah.
And it was just people voting essentially for their own good, which is what it should be, and that's what a democracy is. But yeah, it we'll see, I guess, but it definitely needs to be reopened as an argument.
For sure.